Okay, so today we continue with part 2 of lesson 8.5. Pause the video and solve the problem of the day. Deals with finding the least common multiple, or LCM, which we will need to use for today as well. All right, so the notes are really short, but I'm going to talk through everything here. We have two examples, one with adding with unlike denominators and one subtracting with unlike denominators. Now, how I like to set this up is, do you know like when you used to add or subtract back in the day, back when you were in elementary school, we added up and down or subtracted up and down. So I'm actually going to rewrite these in the vertical position. So you're going to add these. Now you see that they have not a common denominator. So do you remember the last couple of problems we did in the last assignment? How it was modeled like this to find the LCM? I'll do the LCM up here. But we have to find the least common multiple of the denominators here from like the last part of the lesson. All right, so we have 3 and we have 4. The first number they both have in common is 12, right? Remember how I underline them as I go? And then I have an x squared and x to the first power. We always go with the higher one, which is x squared. So my LCM for this problem is 12x squared. Now, if you remember with regular fractions with unlike denominators, we want to know what we need to multiply by to get the denominator to be the same. Almost like what's missing, right? So draw your 2 sets of parentheses. All right, in this one I have 3x squared. I want 12x squared. So in order to get the LCM, I need to multiply by 4. Whatever I do to the bottom, I must do to the top. So get the one done here. We have 4x. I want 12x squared. So we'll have to multiply top and bottom by 3x to get that. So the whole goal of each of our denominators is to look like the same thing. All right. So let's move over to the right. Multiply numerators and denominators. 8 times 4 is 32, right? 3x squared times 4 is 12x squared. And you know you picked the right things to multiply by in this step because my denominator now looks like that, right? All right, and then the top here, I get 15x over 4x times 3x is 12x squared. Now the next part is like what we did in the last part of the lesson. Once they have a common denominator, you add the numerators but keep the denominator the same. So what we're going to do is we'll add the denominators. Now 32 and 15x are unlike terms, so I just rewrite them together. So I'll get 15x plus 32 all over the same denominator, which is just 12x squared. And that's my final answer. Sometimes, I know not in example 3, but in example 4, there will be times when you could simplify and factor something out and cross things out, but right now there's nothing. 15 and 32 have no number in common to simplify. So that's our answer. All right, you might want to pause the video and try the next one, or at least set it up. Now, do you see what their denominators, before we determine what the LCM is, do you see how, okay, so 10x squared is all right, but do you see how this denominator is not factored all the way through? Can't you take out a 5x from everything? Factor out a monomial. That'll leave me with x minus 2. So I'm going to cross that out. Once you factor out your common thing, now I'm going to find the LCM of these two that are circled. Now, since I don't have room to the right, I'm going to do it above it. All right, so let's go from left to right. We have a 10 and we have a 5. I'm going to use the 10 for my LCM, right? Next, we have an x squared and an x. I go with the higher power, so I'm going to go x squared. And I still have an x minus 2 left over, so I'm just going to rewrite that. This is my LCM. Now we're going to set it up like before. you know, I'll do more work over here actually. Write them vertically. I can write it over a little more actually. All right. So I rewrote them vertically. And draw my line. Now we want the bottom to look like the denominator, or but I like the LCM. So the bottom must look like the LCM. You're gonna see what we need to multiply. We multiply by what's missing, right? So let's look at the denominator in the first part, 10x squared. All right, well I have the 10x squared, what am I missing? X minus 2. So multiply bottom and top by x minus 2. Because remember, whatever you do to the bottom, you have to do the top as well. All right. And then in this one, I have a 5x, x minus 2. So I have this. I only have 5, but I want to get to 10. So I need 5 times 2 is 10, right? And I have 1x. I need another x to get x squared. So we multiply by 2x. So let's see what happens here. Now, be careful. You need to distribute the 3 to both. There are 2 parts. So when you multiply, you have to distribute to everything. So my numerator here will be what? 3x minus 6 over the LCM, 10x squared, x minus 2. And then this one here, the numerator would be 4x squared. Now you might be saying, hey, do I have to distribute the 5x down here and multiply by 2x? No, you don't. What does your denominator have to look like each time? Hopefully you realize each time it should look like the LCM here. So really, we can rewrite it as the LCM. It's the same thing multiplied together. On the left, it's just a different order. All right. So now we combine them. Combining means I combine the numerators. Now if you look, they are all unlike terms. Nothing's the same. So I'm just going to rewrite it. It's going to be 4x squared plus 3x minus 6 all over the denominator, the LCM, 10x squared, x minus 2. Now normally we would say, okay, can we factor the top? See what simplifies. I'm going to tell you now it's not factorable, so you can just leave your answer as is. We'll see ones where it is factorable. All right. Subtract is the same idea, except you got to be mindful of the sign. So let's rewrite here. Oh, and actually before I do that, let me clear this for a second. Before we rewrite, can't we fix the denominators here? Here we could factor out a 3. So it's x minus 5. And here I could factor this, right? X minus 5, x plus 1. So let's do it first and now talk about the LCM. All right. So what do I have? I have a 3, know the number, so I write down the 3. I have an x minus 5 here, x minus 5 here. I have 1 for each, so just a single x minus 5. And then what am I left with, an x plus 1? So there's my LCM for A. So rewrite it. Now be careful here. Do you see how this is a negative? Negative in math in Algebra 2 doesn't mean like, hey, we're really subtracting. Negative just now means distribute the negative to both of them to see what happens. So if it's all right, I'm going to do this now already. We get a negative 2x up top, but also minus 2 over the denominator. All right. Now we're going to multiply by what's missing, so let me draw my line. So once again, subtraction just means I distribute the negative. I'm not always necessarily subtracting, it depends on our signs. But I need to multiply by something to get the LCM for both. So here I'm missing what, x plus 1? Here I'm just missing the 3, right? Don't forget, like, we distribute the x to both up top. Here we distribute the 3 to both. All right. So let's see what we get. Get x squared plus x over 3x minus 5 x plus 1 and here I get negative 6x minus 6 over the same thing, 3x minus 5 x plus 1. All right. From here, draw your line. We are going to combine the numerators now that we have the common denominator and see what we get. I'll do that actually over here. There's no other x squared, so just x squared. X minus 6x is negative 5x. And then negative 6 all over the denominator, which is the LCM. Now in this case, where we'll add a step is, can you factor the top? Hopefully you realize you can. It's x minus 5, excuse me, x minus 6, x plus 1. All over the denominator. Now we could cancel out the x plus 1s. So here's my final answer, x minus 6 over 3 x minus 5. And that's my final answer. All right, so that's what happens when we're sort of putting everything together. All right, now for the last one, I'd like you to pause the video and solve it yourself. So please pause it and then I'll show you the work to it. We'll go from there. So make sure you check your work. I'm going to show you each step a little piece at a time. This is how we factor the denominator. How do we do the LCM? There's a 2, x minus 1, there's 1 on each, x minus 3. Next, we get x plus 2 over 2, x minus 1. Be careful with the negative here again. We distribute the negative both. It's now a positive 2x plus 1. I changed it as I wrote it. The denominator x minus 3 times x minus 1. Now the top will multiply both by x minus 3, bottom will multiply by 2. And be careful with the top here because you FOIL these two. You FOIL them and get this. And then the bottom you distribute the 2. Now we're going to combine like terms and see what we could simplify for last. So I simplified and then I factored, and my final answer is x plus 4 over 2 times the quantity x minus 3. All right, that's it for today. Homework problem of the day, and then 2 problems on assignment 10.